Hello, everyone. I think we are live. Hello. It is great to see everyone again, and it is so good to be back to the live chat. It has been a minute. We missed last week, so sorry about that, everybody, but it is great to be back. So excited to talk about gaming industry, the Xbox showcase coming up. We finally have a confirmed date. It's going to be July 23rd. I'm sure there's a ton of questions and stuff we can talk about in regards to the Xbox showcase. What are we hoping is going to be there? What do we actually expect to be there? Like realistic predictions, and what are our hopes and dreams, right? What is a showcase and what is a conference without some hopes and dreams? You got to have those. So I'm sure there's a ton we can talk about in regards to that. We have a whole bunch of sales numbers for The Last of Us Part 2 now in multiple markets. You know, the last live chat, we talked about how The Last of Us Part 2 had done 4 million plus, you know, in its opening 3 days, setting a new PlayStation record. But we now have a bit of a look at some of the legs in multiple markets, right? We're kind of seeing how it's holding, how it's not holding. So we can talk about what we're thinking The Last of Us Part 2 is going to keep doing. We've got Ghost of Tsushima right around the corner. That's right. Ghost of Tsushima is only like a little over a week away now. So we've got that we can talk about, sales expectations for Ghost of Tsushima, and so much more. So anyone that's never been part of the live chat, the way this works, you drop those comments, you drop those questions down on the side, and we break down all of the biggest gaming news, the sales news, and whatever you want to talk about. So if you have anything you want to discuss, if you have anything you want to break down, make sure you start dropping those questions on the side. I will get to as many as possible. I usually stream for about an hour, a little over an hour, and we do about 1 or 2 of these a week. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for jumping in. Keep dropping those comments and questions. And yeah, let's get going. Let's dive in. I'm excited to be back. Sorry I missed last week. It was a bit of a couple things. I've been really busy lately. You know, I should never be too busy for the live chat, but it's been hectic for me, crazy, trying to juggle a job, you know, social media, a 2-year-old. You all don't need my excuses. So sorry, everyone. We'll definitely get in, you know, obviously at least 1 this week, maybe 2 if there's some big news at the end of the week. So let's start diving in, and thanks everyone who has shown up. All right. Javier Macias Leon kicking us off here, saying, "Hi, Benji. The Last of Us Part 2 broke all the records for Sony. How well do you think Ghost of Tsushima will do? The few impressions I have seen are very positive." Yeah. So my thoughts on Ghost of Tsushima early. Obviously, we have no actual sales metrics yet. The game's not out. We have really no updates on pre-order numbers, at least from Sony themselves, right? We kind of got some hints about The Last of Us before it came out. They were talking about record-setting pre-orders, you know, in markets like Brazil, in Europe. So we kind of had a key idea, you know, before launch even, that The Last of Us Part 2 was going to be pretty gigantic. We haven't gotten anything from Sony in terms of Ghost of Tsushima, but from what I'm seeing in terms of like social media metrics, in terms of, you know, people I've reached out, that I've talked to, it's looking like Ghost of Tsushima is going to be, you know, unsurprisingly, I don't think, another huge success for Sony at launch. They're on a heck of a run lately in terms of these big first-party games. You know, whenever you look at the PS4's life cycle in general, you know, Sony's been just on a heck of a run. You look at how big Uncharted 4 was. You look at Horizon Zero Dawn. You look at, you know, The Last of Us Part 2, God of War, Spider-Man. You know, I could go on and on. Sony really has seen some gigantic growth this generation in terms of like their first-party exclusive sales. They've just been really on fire. And Ghost of Tsushima is looking like it is also going to join those ranks. Now, I'm not expecting a new record here from Ghost of Tsushima. I'm not expecting, you know, 3+ million in 3 days. I think that would be pretty tough. You know, that would put it into God of War territory. And for a new IP, I think that's kind of unrealistic to expect over 3 million in 3 days in terms of sell-through. But I will say that I am expecting it to do very well. I think there's a very good chance, actually, that Ghost of Tsushima might set, you know, there is one record it might get, and that might be the best new IP launch for PlayStation this generation. I think that's possible. Right now, the best launch for a new IP this generation from them was Horizon Zero Dawn. That was the fastest selling brand new IP that was introduced this generation for Sony. I think it's possible. Now, key here is the game needs to review well. It needs to be a pretty solid game here. If it's going to get, down in like the 60s or 70s Metacritic, which I don't expect at all, some of the early buzz seems to be very positive. But yeah, I think it does have a shot possibly of opening higher than Horizon Zero Dawn did. So it might set that record for Sony, but I'm not expecting like an overall new record launch, but it should still do great. Definitely the biggest launch ever for Sucker Punch, without a doubt. I'm 100% sure it will launch bigger than any of the Infamous games did. So at the very least for Sucker Punch themselves, they have that's going to be a huge win for them. That guy 310 saying shout out for the viewers that are here. Don't forget to drop a like while we wait. I always appreciate the likes. It helps the channel get discovered, helps the algorithm. So thank you, that guy. Silence PP7. How well has Dragon's Dogma sold after the numerous ports, and when should we expect a next-gen sequel? Capcom reportedly gave Itsuno, I'm so bad pronouncing names, the green light to make Dragon's Dogma 2, but he wanted to do Devil May Cry 5 first. Yeah, so off the top of my head, I can't quite remember the exact Dragon's Dogma numbers. Capcom has put those out there for their million sellers list. It's not super high, but it has done decent. It's added, several 100,000. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, so I apologize. But the multiple ports have added to the sales. There's been multiple hundreds of thousands of units, but it's not like a gigantic seller. But keep in mind, neither ever was really Devil May Cry, right? Devil May Cry has always sold okay, decent for the genre, but Devil May Cry, has never been this like gigantic juggernaut. And they greenlit Devil May Cry 5, and that sold very well, right? It's the best-selling, fastest-selling Devil May Cry game ever. So I do actually expect a Dragon's Dogma sequel. I know that might sound kind of like a long shot considering how long ago the original Dragon's Dogma came out, and there hasn't been like a ton of rumors and stuff. But like you said, Silence PP7, we know Capcom at least explored that before they made Devil May Cry 5. And we've seen Western RPGs, which Dragon's Dogma is obviously a Japanese RPG because it is developed by Capcom, but it takes a lot of influence, you could tell, from Western type RPGs, from games like, granted, it's different, but you know what I'm saying? Like Skyrim and these open world RPGs, that's a big genre. And I think Capcom could have a lot of success with the Dragon's Dogma sequel. So Silence PP7, I do think it's going to happen. When, I'm not sure. I think there's a chance that game's in development right now. I think it very well could be. So I don't think we'll see it very soon. Like I wouldn't expect that you see it in the next 6 months, for example. Who knows? Maybe Capcom throws a curveball. But if that game's in development, it didn't start until after Devil May Cry 5 finished, and that was just last year. So I'd be surprised if they have Dragon's Dogma 2 ready to show only a year later after DMC. You know what I mean? Right now, they seem focused on Resident Evil 8 Village and things like that. So I think you'll see Dragon's Dogma 2, but probably not for another year or so. In terms of announcement, it'll be later than that it releases. Killian Butler. Hey, Benji, what do you think of the new Cyberpunk info? I'm super excited for it, but in my opinion, it isn't the genre-defining game changer that other people think it is. I think The Last of Us 2 will still be my game of the year. Interesting comment, Killian. I see a lot of different opinions on Cyberpunk 2077. You have people like me that are maximum hyped. Like I am max level hype because I love The Witcher 3. It's literally one of my all-time favorite games. Back whenever I posted on forums and stuff, I used to always rock a Geralt avatar. Like that's what I had for a very long time. Before people actually saw me, I would always have people say that they just read my comments in Geralt's voice because, that was my avatar. So I'm a huge fan of CD Projekt Red. I loved The Witcher. So that's kind of boosting my Cyberpunk, expectations and excitement. I'm a big fan of the genre. I love RPGs with a lot of options and stuff. But I also, Killian, to back up what you're saying, I do see a lot of people that are a little worried about Cyberpunk in terms of like their tastes. The game clearly is extremely violent, extreme amounts of language. It's really focused on like the gang aspect of the Cyberpunk universe. I think some people were hoping it'd be a little bit more Blade Runner and a little bit less, hardcore gangs, F-bombs everywhere type of an experience. And I've seen some people slightly worried, that it's being, that's first person, that really like third person games. So Killian, I think it's going to be gigantic. I mean, absolutely huge. I'm expecting 20 plus million sales for Cyberpunk 2077 easily, like easily over 20 million, could be 30, 40 million. Who knows? I know that sounds crazy, but I would be utterly shocked if this game sells less than 20 million units. I think it's going to be huge. There is a lot riding on it, though. There is a lot. If this game comes out, and I know it sounds crazy considering like 80s Metacritic's a good score, right? If you get like an 84 Metacritic, by most game standards, you would love to be in the 80s on Metacritic, but the expectations are so high for Cyberpunk. I honestly think if it misses a 90 Metacritic, like that's kind of a blow to it. That's not the end of the world. We see lots of great games in 80s meta. I hate that, people freak out if a game isn't 90 plus Metacritic, right? You have games like Spider-Man that I loved that are less than 80 Metacritic. You have games like Days Gone that are at 71 on Metacritic that I love. But Cyberpunk, the expectations are so high that I feel like it needs to review amazing. So yeah, Killian, it's going to be very interesting to watch. I feel for CD Projekt Red. Those expectations are through the roof. Timmer72299. Hey, Benji, what are your thoughts on Microsoft's interest in buying WB Games? Yeah, I knew we would get to this. This is interesting, right? We don't really know all the bidders yet, though. So yeah, let's go into this. This is going to be a pretty intense topic because the stakes are high. Let me grab a drink really quick. I just worked out before I got on stream, so I'm like parched. Give me a second, just a sec. All right, let's talk about these rumors. So anyone that has missed it, the first reports came out several weeks ago. AT&T is interested in selling the WB Games division of their company, right? That's going to be the developers like Rocksteady. It's going to be, who's famous for the Batman Arkham games. It's going to include NetherRealm, who is, of course, known for Injustice and Mortal Kombat. It's going to be Avalanche. It's going to be WB Games Montreal. You're talking about many, many teams, many, many studios. So it's big, right? They're asking a big, big price tag. The original rumored number was $4 billion, that it was going to be up to a $4 billion purchase. There's also been some reports that could be maybe as low as $2 billion, right? Somewhere in that range, $2 to $4 billion. And we had some notes that there were some interested parties. We didn't get a ton of clarity on that, but there were some reports that, hey, the big publishers, right? EA, Activision, that they were actively interested in this purchase. There's a new report that just came out from, I believe, the information.com, something like that. I apologize if I'm getting the link wrong. And they noted specifically, they mentioned these other interested parties, but they also said that Microsoft has now joined the bidding war, if you will, the interest in WB Games. I don't find this shocking at all. I sent a tweet about this. And I said, why? Why would Microsoft be so interested in WB Games, right? What does that do for them? It's a big purchase, right? It's a big purchase. It's high risk in terms of the amount of money you're forking out. You're getting a lot of teams. Well, here is the prime reason, and it's actually also the main reason Microsoft's first party has already grown so much. A lot of people think it was simply because Microsoft wanted to compete with Sony in terms of exclusives. And yes, that is a part of it, but the bigger part is Game Pass. That is right, Game Pass. Microsoft envisions Game Pass as the future of their company. That doesn't mean they don't want to stop selling consoles. That doesn't mean that they don't want you to go out and buy, $60 games. Doesn't mean any of that. But what it does mean, let's look at subscriptions. The subscription industry is gigantic. You look at Netflix, you look at Disney Plus, you look at Hulu. The streaming services everywhere, and subscription services everywhere in media. Spotify for music, for example, and gaming is playing catch up, to be honest. Gaming is behind the rest of the industry in terms of media, in terms of music, in terms of movies, in terms of TV. The gaming industry is behind those other industries in terms of subscriptions, in terms of streaming. And that's a gigantic money. I mean, we're talking huge. And one of the best forms of money, you know what one of the best is? Reoccurring, steady revenue. That's right. Every time you put out a game, if it's a AAA game, blockbuster, it's a big risk, right? You're rolling the dice. Is this game going to sell well? We've invested, $100 million into this. It's a huge risk. But if you have that consistent subscription money coming in every single month that you can rely on, man, that goes a long way. So how does this tie into WB? Well, WB, you're going to be getting multiple established AAA studios right off the bat. You don't need to build the team. You don't need to do all of the hiring to get it ready. You don't need to build the offices. I mean, it's a ton of work to start a new company, right? You're seeing Microsoft do this with the initiative, but it's a long build process. If you buy WB, they're there. They're done. You have the teams. Yes, of course, you're going to have to work them into your ecosystem, work them into the Xbox family or EA family or whoever buys them. It's not like you just buy it and you're done, but you already have skipped so much of the work involved for getting games up and running. So it makes perfect sense to me why Microsoft would be interested in this. The way you sell Game Pass subscriptions is through exclusive content. Just like people subscribe to Netflix so they can watch Stranger Things, so they can watch Tiger King, so they can watch, all of these exclusive Netflix series. You subscribe to Disney Plus so you can watch those Disney movies, so you can watch The Mandalorian. You need to bring in subscribers, and the more studios you have, the more consistent exclusive content you have hitting that service. So it makes perfect sense to me that Xbox is interested in them. Whether they will be the ones who actually buy them in the end, who knows? It's a huge price tag. We're talking $2 to $4 billion here. I think it's probably worth it. But, there's going to be a bidding war. You have to still be realistic. EA is in on this. Activision's in on this. Microsoft's in on this. We're talking about people that are going to be willing to spend some big bucks. So I would say it's entirely possible and it makes sense. Long answer, I know, but that was a big one. So I thought we really needed to break it down. Split End saying, "Do you love Lamp?" I am dumb. That's over my head, Split End. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm sure it's some kind of joke that is just completely over my head, Split End. But thank you for being here and being the best mod in the world. Bunch of people saying hi. Greetings from India. Hello, India. Hello. Good to see you. Ken B, I know you were on vacation a couple weeks ago, but any thoughts about June NPD based on what you've seen since coming back? Looks like Switch coming back in stock, but PS4, Xbox One hard to find. Ken B, this is going to be way less solid of a prediction than what I normally do because, like you said, I was on vacation for over a week. And then even whenever I came back, it took me a little bit to get back into things, to get back into the role and going. So that week I was off, I really tried to just chill and not do a ton of diving into info. But of course, like always, I've done some. Ken B, here's my really loose predictions for June NPD. And I wouldn't run to the bank with this, but these are my loose predictions. A good month for Switch, but I still think it's decreasing from its peaks that we saw. You saw it set those crazy numbers in March, and then it was down a bit in April, and then it was down a bit again in May. All three of those months were amazing, though, right? March, April, and May. We were looking at holiday-type numbers, in the springtime. So it's impossible to keep that level permanently. I think we're going to see June again as a drop-off from May. So I think May, we're going to be looking at less switches than in May and June, but still a good result. I think still better than normal result for June. I'm expecting PlayStation 4 up year over year by probably a pretty decent amount. It had The Last of Us Part 2 come out, which did crazy numbers. There was a bundle with The Last of Us Part 2, which I'm sure pushed a big amount of units. And, whenever you have an exclusive that's that big, doing 4 million units in a month, or not even a month, in 3 days, it's going to push hardware. So I'm expecting a big year over year increase for the PlayStation 4. And I think it's possible that Xbox also has growth. Xbox hasn't gotten as much attention this year as, like, let's say the Switch. But the Xbox is having a very good year this year in the US as well. So overall, a good month, but not quite as impressive as we saw earlier on in the springtime. Okay, quick MMA question. I know not everyone here is an MMA fan, but I love MMA, incredibly passionate about it, so much so I've thought about starting a second Twitter account and YouTube channel just around MMA. But I have a really quick question here, so I'm going to get to it, and then we'll be right back to games. Matt Duffy. Hi, Benji. You're the man. Thank you. It means the world to me. Quick MMA question. Just wanted to know your thoughts on Usman versus Masvidal. Yeah, how crazy is this? And if you will ever consider doing an MMA live chat. Thank you. Thanks, Matt. Yes, I am very much considering having an MMA specific channel. I love it. My two favorite things in the world are gaming and MMA. Like, that is it. Well, I should say all fighting. I love boxing. I love kickboxing. I'm an addict for that stuff. So yes, I am considering it, Matt. In terms of my thoughts on Usman versus Masvidal, very interesting. It's a short notice fight for Masvidal, but there has been reports that he's been training. So he might not be as short notice as you might think. It looks like he's coming in on 6 days, which technically he is, but we know he was getting in a lot of good wrestlers to prepare for Usman. I think it might be a wild fight, like a war. I actually am expecting this to be kind of a war. Usman has shown that he's tougher than I think a lot of us thought, especially in that Colby Covington fight. The Colby fight was just a drag-out war on both sides. Both guys laying in shots. And I think Usman proved to a lot of people that he is tough, that it's not just that he can dominate when it's easy for him, but he can also go through a war. And Masvidal is on fire lately. So I think it's going to be a war, Matt. My prediction is Usman will win. I just think his cardio with Masvidal coming in on short notice might be tough, but I'm expecting an amazing fight. Anexin Hume. What do you think Sony is holding back for August? Silent Hill ? I don't know if I believe the Silent Hill rumors, to be honest with you. They may be true. It's entirely possible that they are holding back that Silent Hill game. I just don't believe it until I see it. I know some of the people that have reported on that are pretty reliable in terms of rumors and leaks. One of them, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's very reliable with Resident Evil leaks, has said that they have heard that Silent Hill is real. And Exen Hume, I just don't believe it until I see it. It's one of those kind of rumors. Sometimes I'm like, I'm all in on a rumor. This one, I'm like, I think there's definitely a good chance it's real, considering how many people have reported that they've heard about this game. But just me personally, until I see it, until it is announced, I'm I don't know on it. In terms of what they're holding back, we know they're holding back some. Clearly, obviously, the next God of War is far into development. I don't know that you'll see God of War in August, though. I think right now, in terms of like their really, really big AAA games that they're building towards, it's Horizon Forbidden West. So I think they may wait a little bit longer to show you God of War. Could happen, but I don't think so. I don't think God of War. But yeah, there's definitely some stuff. Obviously, they're holding back some. They don't want to show everything, just like Microsoft is now reportedly not showing the initiative at the Xbox showcase. Remember, in terms of marketing, you don't want to just blow everything out right at once, because then you have months and months or years of zero info and people get impatient, people get upset. So you do need to show a lot, but you also need to spread out the announcements as well. So we'll definitely see some stuff in August. I think you're going to see games like Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, and Spider-Man PS4 in August. I am expecting them to announce that those games are enhanced on PlayStation 5 with better frame rates, better graphics. I think that is one thing you will hear about in August. Split End 89. Do you think Sony will fire back pretty quickly after the Xbox showcase? Yes, in August. Split End, kind of what we've heard from people that like Jeff Grubb, who are very, very, very reliable. That sounds like August, there is going to be a state of play. That's probably going to be early to mid-August, I would think. So Split End, you will hear pretty soon. You know, the Xbox showcase is late, right? It's July 23rd. So within a few weeks, 3 weeks, whenever that state of play is, yeah, it'll be pretty quick. I don't think you're going to hear something like the same day, though who knows? Sony has liked to troll Microsoft on that lately. If you pay attention to like the last 2 years, right, whenever Xbox has an announcement, Sony likes to just drop something like right around it. So maybe you'll get something small, but either way, you're going to get a pretty big follow-up within a few weeks at that August state of play. Benji here saying, what do you think would be the impact on sales with a $70 price for next-gen games? Yes. So we already know that NBA 2K21, it's officially announced it's going to be $70 on next-gen, $60 on current-gen, and we also have a report that many, many other publishers are also looking actively into doing this as well. I have a lot of thoughts on it. So first of all, it makes sense, to be perfectly honest with you. I know this sucks to hear. It sucks to hear for me too. I don't make very much money. I have a following on Twitter that's pretty big, right? We're over 12,000 now on there, and on YouTube and stuff. And here it's awesome and it's growing. But I'm just a retail employee for my regular job, right? I'm an independent sales analyst. I do all this work on my own, but I'm not employed as one. So I'm not out here making big money, like people like Matt Piscatella and Daniel, who completely Zhui, who completely deserve that money, by the way. They're even better than me at it. But I don't make that kind of money. I'm just a retail employee. So yes, it sucks. It sucks that we're going to be spending $70 probably on next-gen games, right? It's definitely a steep increase. $10 might not sound like much, but whenever you're someone that doesn't have a ton of money, like many of us, it is a lot of money. So what's my opinion in terms of impact? I think one thing it does for sure is it makes subscription services way more valuable, right? Things like Game Pass, especially Game Pass for those first-party AAA Xbox games, those Halo Infinites, those Fables, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Knowing that you can get those day one on Game Pass and not have to drop $70 on them, I think it's definitely going to be big for subscription services in terms of added value, though I expect those to go up in subscription price too, but not right off the bat. I would expect middle of next generation, you'll see a price increase for Game Pass. In terms of like actual unit sales at launch, I don't think it'll hurt that much, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. It might hurt some games, those games that are more like mid-tier, for example, right? And I don't say mid-tier in like a mean way, but I mean like those games that don't have just crazy followings behind them, things like that. Maybe some of those Arcane, Bethesda games, for example, or games that are awesome, they're cool, but they're not gigantic. It could hurt those a little bit, but those games like Spider-Man, like Horizon, like Call of Duty, like sports games, it's just not really going to hurt them, to be honest with you. People are so invested on getting those giant games day one anyways. I just don't see it having really any negative impact on those, but it could affect some of those more mid-tier games. But the biggest AAA, Benji, I just don't think it'll hurt those sales. I really don't. Killian, hey Benji, what do you think of the conversation surrounding game length? Do you think the industry should move towards having smaller games that aren't drawn out and feel well paced? Yeah, this is interesting, right? So this was really brought up by Sean Layden. It's been something that's been kind of bubbling for a while now. this discussion, but Sean Layden really kind of blew it up lately. It got a lot of attention. I have a couple thoughts on it, Killian. One, it is true that longer games do tend to sell better. It's just really true nowadays. It really is true. You see games like the Assassin's Creed games, the Witcher games, the Grand Theft Auto games. If you look at so many of the best-selling games that are out there, they are very long games, and there's a reason for that. Games are expensive, and people want to feel like they are getting their money's worth, right? Whenever you go out and spend $60, you don't really want to beat a game in 5 hours, right? If you're dropping $60, you want to know that you're getting a lot of value out of that $60. So that is a big part of it. If you look, for example, like Resident Evil 3, that game was $60. It launched well. The legs have not been very good. It fell off charts all over the place very, very quickly. And I think part of that is the length. Resident Evil 3 is a very, very short game. But what I would like to see, Killian, what I think would be very good for the industry is more experimentation at different price points for different lengths, right? For example, I love Uncharted Lost Legacy. I love it. It's literally probably my favorite Uncharted game, or tied with Uncharted 4. I love what Insomniac's doing, experimenting with Spider-Man Miles Morales, right? A little bit shorter, more tightly focused game. We don't know the price tag on that yet, but Uncharted Lost Legacy, for example, wasn't $60. I think that would be a great thing for the industry to explore more. Less games that have to be $60, have to be full price, but are a little bit shorter in length, but still keeping those long, gigantic, huge budget games as well. I think there's just room for both. I don't think you have to go one or the other. So much discussion around anything, games included, is extremes, right? It's very polarizing. You have diehard PlayStation people that literally hate Xbox, or diehard Xbox people that literally hate PlayStation. Like, everything is so polarizing, but it doesn't have to be. Not everything has to be one or has to be the other. And I think that's true too of game length. We're so set on long games. Everything has to be $60 besides like indies. And it's just this, or it's a micro budget indie game and it costs $10. There's room in between. There really is. Narendra Yadev, Sea of Thieves again, number one. Yeah, Sea of Thieves has been performing absolutely spectacular on Steam. So has Master Chief Collection, by the way. Both of those games just lighting Steam on fire. They've been like, legs have been amazing on both of those, and they've been very high on the sales charts on Steam. So I'll tell you what a success for Microsoft exploring Steam with their first party games has been. Like, wow, that could not have gone better for them. And if you look at Horizon Zero Dawn, it also, when it went up for pre-order, shot up to number one as well. Just expect to see a lot more of this. There's too much money on the table for both Sony and Microsoft. You're throwing money away, not putting games on Steam. Now, Sony, don't expect those PS5 games to launch day one on Steam. That ain't happening. Sony is still very invested in growing their dedicated console business. But, PS4 games that have been out for a while that have already done their job of selling PS4s, like God of War, Spider-Man, don't be shocked at all if you see those start to pop up on Steam. Costas. Hi, Benji-Sales. How good do you think Halo Infinite would sell if there was not Game Pass? This is fascinating. How are The Last of Us 2 legs looking? This is fascinating, Costas, because I have wondered the same. All right, let's go into Halo Infinite. I have a couple thoughts on Halo Infinite. First of all, I think there's a very, very real chance that Halo Infinite is going to set a new all-time record for the entire Xbox division in terms of players at launch. I know some people hate that metric. They just want to hear about sales. But remember, Microsoft's business is changing. For them, it is not just about sales anymore, especially when you have 10 plus million Game Pass subscribers, and it's just going to keep growing. That's a huge moneymaker for them. So I expect that Infinite has a very real chance of setting a new Xbox record for a couple of reasons. It's going to be on Xbox One. It's going to be on Xbox Next Gen. It's going to be on PC. And it's going to be on Game Pass. I mean, it has everything cooking for it to be an enormous success out of the gate. In terms of players, I think there is a very real chance you're going to see Microsoft announce Halo Infinite has broken the all-time record for players at launch for an Xbox game. But I do think that Halo Infinite sales on console will suffer due to Game Pass. I think it's still going to sell good. I expect its launch month to be very high on the charts. It's still going to sell, but it is not going to be hitting what it could have without Game Pass in terms of strictly unit sales. I just do not expect that on console. Now, PC is a bit of a different story, right? We've seen with Steam that games can be on Game Pass on PC and still sell amazing on Steam. We saw that with Master Chief Collection. We've seen that with Sea of Thieves. Both those games you can play on Game Pass on PC, but they're still top sellers on Steam. So I think Halo Infinite PC sales won't be impacted that much by Game Pass. Maybe a little bit, but not that bad. But console, yes, I do think that console will be cannibalized a bit by Game Pass. How much could it have sold without Game Pass? Costas, that's really going to come down to quality. That's actually not true for all games. I know it sounds crazy, but sometimes a game can be somewhat mediocre in terms of quality and still launch big if it has a big name attached to it and things like that. But Halo is in such a tricky spot after Halo 5. We're seeing a resurgence of Halo as a brand. Master Chief Collection has done amazing on PC. If you look at the social media metrics for all of the Halo teasers that Halo has been tweeting out about Infinite, they're doing great numbers on Twitter. So Halo seems like it's building up, but 5 was met just so mixed with the fan base. I feel like Infinite needs to be good. Like it has to be good. It has to hit a home run. So Costas, I don't know that I would expect it to break records at launch with no Game Pass. But I will say I do think it is going to launch bigger than Halo 5 no matter what. Like even if Game Pass wasn't a factor, I think Infinite would do better than 5. 5 just the whole buildup felt a little off. So I think Infinite, no matter what, would have done better than that. In terms of The Last of Us Part 2 legs, we'll get through this really quick. That second week drop was big. There's no way to spin it, really. I mean, it was a big second week drop. If you look at UK, if you look at Japan, if you look at the markets we have data for, there's no doubt it was a steep drop. For example, in the UK, it dropped. The second week drop was bigger than Death Stranding's second week drop. I mean, that's pretty big. It was in line with Uncharted 4, but it was a bigger drop than Days Gone. It was a bigger drop than Death Stranding. So, that second week didn't look great. But I don't think that's the end of the world because initial sales were so strong. I mean, it was a new record. So many people are invested in that story that I think it really led to a lot of front loading. But it seems like the drops aren't looking quite as bad now. Just using the UK, for example, its last week drop was like in the 50%. So I think it is stabilizing. But yeah, that second week was a little bit brutal. Tripix here had his super chat that I missed. Thank you so much, Tripix. Thank you so much. Silence PP7. How soon do you see Microsoft resuming their backwards compatibility program after Series X launches? And what games do you want to see? I'm hoping they can get more of the licensed properties like 007. Silence PP7, I think you're going to see that enhanced backwards compatibility on day one or like month one. I think that team has already been working on a bunch of stuff. I think you're going to see enhanced stuff. I mean, almost instantly. Microsoft has talked about how they have a new technology that can basically inject HDR into older games. They've talked about how they're taking older games and seeing gigantic frame rate increases and things like that. Sounds PP7, you're going to see some backwards compatibility stuff day one or like month one in terms of like brand new enhancements. You're going to see that very quick. Microsoft seem all in on this idea of really preserving older games and making them even better. So yeah, I think you're going to see a ton of that very, very early. In terms of like what I would like to see, I would like to see just continued enhancements, for a lot of their first party stuff. I know that, I know the third-party stuff's interesting too, but since it's Microsoft's own catalog, it's their own games. I want to see those older Gear games get that HDR implementation. I want to see them running at high frame rates. I want to see stuff like, Banjo-Kazooie and Viva Pinata and just like a lot of these Microsoft first-party games. I really want to see them get really nice enhancements. So the third-party stuff would be cool too. Don't get me wrong. But I would really like to see Microsoft just keep it enhancing those older games because it's a really cool thing for their ecosystem. Tripix saying, sorry, it's not much. Tripix, never apologize for a super chat. No one is ever under any obligation or any pressure to ever do anything like that. So Tripix, trust me, it means the world to me, even if it's no matter the size. It means no difference to me, Tripix. Don't apologize. It's amazing of you and very kind. Thank you. Dave G. Do you think next-gen game development is going to limit Switch getting games and sales? This is interesting. Or is next-gen developing for Xbox One going to save Switch and Nintendo sales? Ooh, Dave, this is an interesting question. So here's what we know. We know Switch definitely can sell third-party games. We have ample evidence and ample proof of that. You've seen The Witcher perform very well on Switch. You have seen Mortal Kombat perform very well on Switch. We had Bethesda straight up say that Doom sold very well for them on Switch. So we have an established track record that third-party games can sell well on Switch. Dave, I don't think you're going to see that end when next gen comes, but I think these really big, crazy big AAA games from the West, especially, it is going to be hard to get those day one on Switch. It really is. We've already seen some games like The Outer Worlds, for example, that got ported to Switch. They had to cut so much back and so much off of that game to where it was like almost unrecognizable at times to run on the Switch. Next gen just will make that even more challenging. So Dave, what I would say is I would by no means expect third-party sales to just or third-party ports to just completely stop. I think that would be crazy, especially considering the install base for the Switch. I mean, the Switch has just performed outstanding globally. So it's such a big market that I really think you're doing your company a disservice if you ignore the Switch. But what I will say, Dave, is especially from Western developers, the Activisions, the EAs, the Ubisoft, you're going to still see some support for Switch for sure, but I don't think you're going to be seeing them put their biggest, most gigantic AAA next-gen games on Switch. I think it's going to be more of a case-by-case basis and games that make sense for the platform, if you know what I'm saying. Ken B, how do you see Paper Mario opening next week? And we also have Alex Bailey right there asking a very similar question. Paper Mario, I think, is going to do really well. Nintendo hasn't had a ton this year, really. They had Animal Crossing, which was just, you can't throw enough superlatives at Animal Crossing for how well it has sold, right? It's destroyed all expectations. It's tracking to be like the biggest Nintendo game just about ever. Wow, just wow. But really outside of Animal Crossing, you haven't had a lot, right? You had Xenoblade, which has done pretty well for the type of game it is, right? It's a re-release of a JRPG, but it's not like, some ginormous seller. It's just kind of like a nice game to have there as well. And it's not like a real sequel, right? It's not Xenoblade 3. So, there just hasn't been a lot. Mario is a huge IP. I think there's a bit of a thirst on Nintendo consoles for more content. So yeah, Ken B and Alex Bailey. I'm expecting Paper Mario Origami King to be the biggest opening ever for a Paper Mario game. I think it's gonna be the best launch ever for any Paper Mario game ever released. Samuel Tolbert, hey Benji, with so much discussion around WB games being sold, I want to present an unlikely what if. What if AT&T splits the division and sells off individual studios? Hope you're doing well, dude. I'm doing great, Samuel. It's great to see you here. Samuel, you're awesome. So thanks for joining in the chat. It's good to see you. You know, it's an interesting question. All the reports state that AT&T wants to basically bulk sell WB. The indications are they're not that interested in splitting them. They just want to get the whole thing for a big chunk of cash out of there because AT&T has a ton of debt. That's like basically why this is happening. It's not happening because WB Games division's a failure. Their games aren't doing well. It's actually not really anything like that. It's that AT&T needs cash. Like they need money. They have a ton of debt they need to pay off. And one of the best ways to do that is to sell stuff that's worth a lot of money. And WB Games is worth a good chunk of change. So it seems they're more interested in just getting them all out of there. Just sell the whole thing, get $2 to $4 billion to chunk out that debt. And, it goes a long way. But it is an interesting scenario. What if they sold individual studios? Then I think you would have almost a 100% chance that Microsoft would acquire at least one of them. I could see Microsoft and Sony, both of them, going very hard for Rocksteady and NetherRealm. I think those are the two crown jewels of WB Games. Obviously, they have a ton of other talented studios as well. Monolith is very, very talented. WB Games Montreal hasn't put out a game in a long time, but they have a bunch of talented people there as well. But Rocksteady and NetherRealm, I mean, you're talking about two companies with high prestige. So I think you would see both Sony and Microsoft very aggressive to get one of those. And, companies like EA as well. But I think you would actually see Sony even going after one of those two studios. They could get a lot of money from them. But I think what WB Games would be, or what AT&T is a little bit more worried about, is what if they could sell NetherRealm really quickly? They could sell Rocksteady very, very quickly, but then they're kind of sitting on Monolith, on Avalanche, on some of these teams, and they've already gotten rid of their crown jewels to sell the whole thing. So it might be tougher to sell some of their smaller teams. You know what I mean? It might be a bit of more of a challenge. And if you already sell Rocksteady and you sell NetherRealm, you're basically out of the gaming business if you're WB, right? You've sold your two most powerful teams. So they wouldn't want to hold on to those either. So I think that's like actually the main reason they're not doing these individual sales. They're just trying to get the whole chunk out of there because they don't want anything, straggling along. They just want to sell the whole thing. And Rocksteady and NetherRealm, of course, are the things really driving that interest. All right. How long have we been going? 45 minutes. We're still good, baby. We're still good. Thanks, everyone who's come to the chat. It's amazing, as always. It's been such a good chat. Benji, we hear Microsoft is holding some announcements for a later event than the Xbox showcase of the 23rd of July. Is this wise after the PS5 hype? Yes, Benji, because Microsoft has so much to show. They got a lot. So, yes. Yeah, it does make sense. And especially because Microsoft knows that Sony has more coming, right? They know Sony didn't show everything. You can't show all of your cards at once. Here's what I would say, Benji. It would be a mistake if Microsoft didn't have a lot to show, but they do. They have a lot. I wish the initiative was going to be there. I think it would be amazing if the initiative was there. But as I said on Twitter, that studio is only 2 years old, and they're a brand new studio, right? It's not like an established team. An established team, let's say Sony Santa Monica, they can get a lot done in 2 years. You can get a lot done in 2 years. You already have your staff. You have your team. You know how you work together. You have your ideas together. Something like the initiative, 2 years ago, it didn't exist, right? I mean, you don't have the staff. It takes time to staff. It takes time to get to know each other, to get your workflow pipelines working. So I don't think it's shocking, actually, that the initiative's not there. I would have loved to see them, but their project just probably isn't ready to show. Yes, Phil Spencer said it was playable, but that doesn't mean much. Most games are playable within a couple months of development. Being playable just means you can actually get a controller and do something with it. That doesn't mean it's anywhere near ready to be shown. So it's a bummer they're not there, but I think it's very understandable considering we're talking about a brand new studio. Ruger. Hey, Benji, do you think it's safe to say Final Fantasy VII Remake is above 5 million shipped worldwide? Yes, absolutely. It did 3.5 million in 3 days, but that was insanely supply constrained. Thanks. Yes, Ruger, I would say it is a 100% case scenario that Final Fantasy VII Remake's over 5 million globally. Yep, 100%. And then Costas actually asking something almost the exact same thing. How good have Final Fantasy VII legs been? Decent for a JRPG. You always have to put that disclaimer out there because JRPGs notoriously have horrible legs. I mean, like almost universally. Whenever you talk about legs, JRPGs is not a genre you put into that scenario, right? They're just not. JRPG fans are very devoted. They are very enthusiastic and they love that genre. So they go out on day one and they buy those games. It's very rare you see a JRPG game posting just great legs. So I would say Final Fantasy VII legs for the genre have been solid, not spectacular, not terrible, just solid. But it's a JRPG. Matt Reichel. Hey, Benji, love your content. Thank you. Means the world to me. What do you think about The Last of Us 2 hitting 10 million? Yeah, it'll do it very quickly. Very quickly. You're going to get a 10 million announcement from Sony in just a matter of months. So it did 4 million plus in 3 days. That's not its first month. That's 3 days. So you'll get to 10 million quick. I mean, it'll be quick. Yeah. I don't think you're going to get a 10 million announcement tomorrow, but it's not going to take long. You'll hear about The Last of Us 2 hitting 10 million pretty soon. Tripic saying Horizon Forbidden West on PC is epic. What do you think? Did I miss an announcement? Did Sony announce that Forbidden West is coming? Sorry. I'm checking to see if I missed that. Or if you're talking about Horizon Zero Dawn. All right. Here's what I'm going to say. If I missed a Forbidden West announcement, then my goodness, I'm sorry, but I don't think that's happening. So I'm going to assume you meant Zero Dawn. Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it's great. I think it's a good move by Sony. I know it made some people upset, but here's the deal, y'all. Horizon Zero Dawn, not Forbidden West, Zero Dawn is not really selling consoles anymore. Like, no one's going out really this late in the cycle and this long after Horizon came out to buy a PS4. Now, yes, there's people that buy a PS4 and are now buying Horizon, but Horizon itself isn't the reason people are buying PS4s anymore. So I think it's perfectly understandable to put that game on PC. I think it'll do very well for Sony. So yeah, I think it's good. Forbidden West on PC, probably eventually, I would say, but not for a long time. Forzathon saying, what do I think about Horizon Zero Dawn dropping out of the top 10 sellers on Steam? Not surprising, Forzathon, because it's just pre-orders. So the fact that it even shot up to number 1 at all is impressive because you're just looking at pre-orders, people pre-ordering the game. It's not even out yet. So Forzathon, I would say that doesn't really mean much that it dropped out. It just means that the people that were mostly pre-ordering it kind of already have, and you'll probably see another spike right before launch. Ryan asking my thoughts on June NPD, gave that earlier. Oh, and then we have Split End and Tripic saying that they meant Horizon Zero Dawn. Makes sense. Benji saying it seems Animal Crossing New Horizons could have already sold 20 million units worldwide. If it's true and knowing the evergreen aspect of the series, how many units will it sell lifetime? Benji, it is impossible to know the ceiling because it's just selling absurd. So, I mean, the ceiling, literally, who knows? But to kind of give you something, so I'm not just having a complete cop-out answer to your question, here's what I will say, Benji. Here's a prediction for you, and I don't think it's a wild one, but I think Animal Crossing New Horizons will probably become the best-selling game all-time in Japan. I think it's going to pass. I believe Pokemon Red and Blue is, I think, the current best-selling game ever in Japan. I think, if I'm getting this mixed up, I apologize completely for getting that wrong. But I think number 1's Pokemon Red and Blue, and I think New Horizons is probably going to pass that and become the best-selling game ever in Japan. Bruby saying the June NPD question, which I've of course already answered, but there's also a follow-up part of this that says stock problems are solved, question mark. Bruby, no. Stock problems have not been solved for any of the 3 consoles. That is right. Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox all have hardware shortages. So nope. Elias saying, do you think Halo or Cyberpunk could take away the game of the year status of The Last of Us Part 2? Well, Elias, couple thoughts on that. First of all, The Last of Us Part 2 is definitely not game of the year for everyone. Highly divisive game. For me, it is actually. It is. The Last of Us Part 2 is the best game I've played this year. It was Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now I have The Last of Us Part 2 as my favorite. It's a controversial take. I've had some people very pissed off at me on social media because I dared to like the game. But, I mean, who cares? Like, if you're that invested that somebody else likes a game that you don't like, that you're going to be hateful, then you're not worth me paying attention to anyways. Just being honest with you. You're not worth me paying attention to you. But I have no issue with someone not liking The Last of Us Part 2 because it is they take some big risks with that game. They take some big risks. If you don't like the story, just for people out there that don't like it, I don't think you're wrong to not like it. It's going to be highly controversial. So in terms of is The Last of Us Part 2 game of the year, Elias, it is for some, but not for everyone. You know what I mean? So could Cyberpunk or Halo take it? Halo, I think, is a long shot. Because the media is kind of, and this isn't an anti-media thing. This is true in movies, and this is true with all kinds of media. Halo has been around for so long, and there's so many entries on Halo. It's kind of hard for Halo to get that game of the year. A lot of times people like newer concepts or like complete reimaginings of something. One thing that really helped God of War get game of the year was it was really almost nothing like the older God of War games. Of course, there's some similarities, like it being a hack and slash, it being a combat focused game, third person, but like so much was different. Kratos was basically an entirely different character. The combat completely changed how it worked. Instead of doing this like zoomed out, crazy stuff, it's more over the shoulder and heavy and really focused, close combat. Like the setting is completely different. Like they really changed it. Infinite, I think, is going to be a little bit different than traditional Halos. Probably some big changes too. But I have a feeling it's still going to feel like Halo. And for some media, I think that's not going to necessarily resonate the same way. Cyberpunk definitely has a chance. I would say Cyberpunk has a better chance of being a consensus game of the year than Halo Infinite. Because it's something brand new. You know what I mean? It's a brand new IP for gaming. It's I just think it has a better shot than Halo would. Forzathon. Hey, Benji, what do you think of Cyberpunk 2077 Game Pass rumors? I don't believe it. If I'm wrong, holy hell, how much did Microsoft pay CD Projekt Red? I mean, holy hell, how much did they pay them? We're talking, the amount of money Microsoft would have to pay to get Cyberpunk 2077 on Game Pass quickly. I believe that's the current rumor, right? That it might be hitting shortly after launch. So let's say that's 1 or 2 months. The amount of money Microsoft would have to spend would be freaking nuts. So if it's true, shout out to CD Projekt Red. Y'all made bank. So as of now, I'm going to say I don't buy that rumor just because of the sheer amount of money they would have to pay. But hey, shout out to CD Projekt Red if they negotiated that deal. My goodness, they must have got so much money. Kieran Buckley, do you think there's a chance we see a Banjo-Kazooie game for the Series X? Yes. Or does Microsoft just not see any worth in the franchise? Kieran, is a total gamble. I would bet money that you will see a Banjo-Kazooie game on Series X. Yeah, I think it's definitely going to happen. Yep. I would expect it. Javier. Oh, okay. Just another WB Games question. Forzathon. What are your predictions for Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning? I think it's going to do well. THQ Nordic is on a freaking roll. A lot of people don't realize that, but between Battle for Bikini Bottom, between Saints Row the Third remaster, like so many games. These are games that aren't exactly like number one best-selling games on the charts, but they also don't have number one best-selling game on the charts budgets, right? THQ Nordic is very smart, very, very smart. The people there, I know they had that huge controversy around the whole 8chan thing and all that stuff, which was a complete disaster, to be frank. But if you want to talk about like the business people there, they're smart. They're smart. They get stuff at a good price. They budget accordingly. They move the right amount of units for what they need to. They're in a good spot. THQ Nordic is a company that is really propelling themselves. Keep expecting THQ Nordic growth. And Re-Reckoning will do well. It's not going to be one of those games. Don't expect Re-Reckoning to be selling, 10 million units. It's not going to happen. But I think THQ Nordic is smart enough that their marketing in general, besides the 8chan disaster, is good enough. And they position their games well. I expect it to do good. This is a great question for a comment actually from John Geralton here. And this is great. This is very true. Large single player games are becoming quote, quote, loss leaders for consoles. They have low margins, but have high player demand. I expect more first party single player games to bring people into console. To piggyback off of that, John, what I would say is really exclusives are more important now than they've ever been in the entire history of the video game industry. They are. They 100% are. I actually don't even see a counter argument for it. There's actually if you want to be honest, towards the end of the 360 and PS3 generation, exclusives were important, but they kind of had somewhat less importance than some of the bigger third-party games. They were important still. Exclusive content's always important. But right now, as things shift, as we get subscription services, as we get, all of this stuff, as we begin a new generation, exclusive content's never been more important. It has never, ever, 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 ever been more important. Couch. Do you think we'll see any games in 120 FPS on Xbox? Yes. I know you're skeptical, but Xbox seems to be pushing the specs with this console generation, so I'm curious your take on it. Couch, you'll definitely see games. Sorry, my camera's kind of out of focus. Sorry about that. You'll definitely see Xbox games with 120 FPS options. You already have Dirt, for example, reporting that. I think you'll see Forza with 120 FPS option. I don't think you'll see Forza Horizon with a 120 FPS option because they do a bit more in terms of like open world and stuff, whereas the regular Forza games are track-based. But I think you'll see Forza. I think you'll see fighting games with a 120 FPS option. So yes, Couch, I think you will actually see games that offer like a 1080p, not 4K. You're not going to get 120 FPS at 4K, but like maybe that offer a 1080p option and a case-by-case basis, especially for fighting games, racing games, games that really benefit from a super high frame rate. Couch, I do think you'll see that, just not the norm, not the norm at all. 30 to 60 FPS is still going to be your standard. You're not going to see tons of 120 FPS games, but you'll see some, right? You will see some. Fisher's Net here with a super chat. Thank you so much, Fisher's Net, and an incredibly nice comment saying I'm just hyped for the Xbox Game Showcase, and then I'll love you. Thank you, Fisher Net. That's super, super, super nice. I'm excited for the Xbox Game Showcase as well. I'll be honest, I expected more questions on the Xbox Showcase. My thumbnail is the Xbox Showcase, so I thought we would have a lot more Xbox questions here. So I'm excited too. A couple quick thoughts. You're going to see, all reports are that Playground's going to be there with their RPG, heavily rumored to be Fable. I really hope it's Fable. I'll be honest. Usually I root for new IPs. Like a lot of times I'm like, hey, I want to see a brand new IP. But in this specific case, I know it sounds weird. I hope it's not. I hope that Playground really is making a Fable reboot because I love Fable 1 and 2 especially. 3 is okay, but I really love Fable 1 and 2. I would love to see what someone could do with a new Fable, fresh coat of paint, a completely new set of eyes on it since it's a new developer. I hope it is Fable. I think we'll see Forza, the next Forza game announced, but I don't think it's going to be a launch game, but I think you will see Forza there. Obsidian, I think, is going to show their new AAA RPG. Been in the works for a very long time, actually, since before the Microsoft acquisition. So I think you're going to see their AAA game that they've been working on. I expect to see that there, and obviously a Halo Infinite blowout and a few other surprises. So yeah, I'm hyped. I'm super excited to see what Microsoft's got cooking. Whoa, I didn't see this, Timmer. Timmer with an interesting comment here. What are your thoughts on Cyberpunk 2077 pre-orders being apparently the highest in China? Timur, I did not see this. What a great catch. Is this on Steam? I'm guessing this is using like Steam data. I would say on PC itself, if that's what it is, if we're just talking PC, I don't find that hugely shocking because China has actually become a massive market for PC gaming, like huge. If you look at stuff like PUBG and stuff, for example, you know, they do huge numbers in China, like crazy. So if we're talking about Steam PC pre-orders, I wouldn't be actually all that shocked by it. But if we're including console as well, like just total pure numbers, that would surprise me. I thought the combined PC and console pre-orders in like North America, for example, would be higher than China alone. So I'm guessing you mean specifically for PC. And if so, I would say it's impressive, but not totally shocking. But if it's like combined, like just period, it's the highest market. Whoa, that is surprising to me, Timur. I would have not ever seen that coming. Benji here with a interesting, not a normal question that we get. Any thoughts on Atari VCS 800 price of $400? That seems very high and in competition with next gen. What is Atari thinking? Benji, I have no idea. This sort of thing, you know, you only have so much attention that you can spare, right? Like there's only so many things you can really pour your brain into. You know, I have shortcomings just like anybody else. And these like plug and play consoles, like the Ataris, like the Segas, you know, like the Sega plug and plays, man, this is a huge blind spot for me, Benji. It's just a huge one. I put so little effort into researching how these sell. You know, I'm so much more focused on like Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, the big AAA games, that this is a blind spot. I have no idea what to think about how it's going to perform. I know that's a bad answer, but I just don't know. I really don't. All right, we've been going for an hour now. I want to hit a few more questions. I'm going to scroll really quick to the bottom. Don't worry, I'm going to pick a few around, but I want to make sure people that got into the stream a little bit late get a chance to get their questions answered as well. Okay, so I'm gonna scroll down a little bit, take a few from the bottom. John here with an excellent comment. Actually, let me hit John's comment really quick from earlier. John, you're on a roll. You're on a roll. John is very knowledgeable, y'all. I can tell right now. China way over indexes on PC because consoles were banned by the government for many years. Yep. China pretty much is just a PC and mobile market. It's very true. It's why you're just now starting to see companies really like Sony and Nintendo try to break out into that Chinese market. It's going to be a very slow build if consoles ever become big there, right? Like there's no guarantee that they'll ever be huge in China. But if that ever does happen, it's going to be a slow build. Most of the console sales that happen in China are done like through kind of shady black market type stuff traditionally, right? It's just now that really you're seeing companies really invest in trying to go into there. So yeah, PC and mobile is really what China is all about. And consoles are playing a lot of catch up. Who knows if they'll ever break out there, but there's definitely companies that are trying. Super Peach Boy, when do you expect to see a Saints Row 5 announcement soon? Super Peach Boy, because that game isn't super far off. It did get delayed, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, but it shouldn't be too far. It's been in development for a while now, so I'd expect to see it soon. Hassan here. Hey Benji, glad to catch you live. Glad to see you here. What do you think the other studios cooking, like Undead, Compulsion, In Exile, and others we didn't hear from? So In Exile is making a AAA RPG. A lot of people are unaware that don't pay like super close attention to this stuff. But if you're an RPG fan, man, I'll tell you what, Microsoft and Xbox is going to be a good place to be next gen, because we have Obsidian that is currently working on a AAA next gen RPG. You have Playground Games that are making an RPG, and you have In Exile, which besides Wasteland 3 is making another AAA next-gen RPG. So Microsoft has some RPGs cooking. So we know In Exiles is a AAA next-gen RPG. I expect that to be a brand new IP from them. Compulsion here is the biggest question mark to me, because I'll be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of We Happy Few. I thought the setting was amazing. I thought the art style was amazing, but the gameplay for that game just didn't quite click for me. So Compulsion to me is a huge question mark. I suspect that their next game is probably a new IP as well. I don't think you're going to see a follow-up to We Happy Few or anything like that. In fact, I think that IP is not even owned by them. I believe that is owned by Gearbox, who published it. So Compulsion is the biggest question mark for me. Undead Labs is probably making another oh my goodness, my brain is completely turned off right now. The zombie game. You know what I mean? Oh man, you know what I'm talking about. My brain State of Decay. Is that what it's called? Right? State of Decay. Thank you. Yes, David. State of Decay. I suspect Undead's probably making another State of Decay game. You know, the last one did very well in sales. It actually was like at the top of the charts in NPD its launch month. Personally, on a personal level, that doesn't like stoke me up too much. I like State of Decay, but I'm not like a huge fan of the franchise. But I think considering the last one was a big success, that they're probably working on the next State of Decay game. Jack, what would be a surprise game or remake you would want Xbox to show that you wouldn't expect or haven't heard from leaks or rumors like Fable or Perfect Dark? Here is a curveball for you, Jack. I think this has almost 0% chance of happening, but I would go crazy for a Lost Odyssey sequel. I love Lost Odyssey. I love that game. I think it's such a great JRPG. I really loved the characters, really loved the setting, really loved the unique thing they did with like the stories of the characters that you could read. There were so many of these big, long stories that you could read about their past. Man, I would just love to see a sequel to Lost Odyssey. I don't expect that to actually ever happen, but I would love it. I would be so excited to see a Lost Odyssey sequel. It's Batman. Do you think Sony will show anything substantial during their rumored August show? Yes, I do think so. You say you're not expecting anything that big. I would say yes, I expect something big, Batman, but yeah, let's not go crazy. I'd be shocked if God of War, for example, is there, right? Or if the next Days Gone or something like that. I'd be surprised if they have something that big at the August show, but I do think you'll see some pretty impressive stuff. You know, I think there's going to be some maybe more smaller or mid-sized projects that they're going to show there, and maybe like one or two really big third-party games as well. Maybe that's where Final Fantasy 16 gets announced. You know, it's possible. David, what are you most hyped for from the Xbox event? Oh man, most excited for, you know, it's probably Halo Infinite. I'll be honest with you. I know it's an established IP. I know sometimes that's less exciting than a brand new IP or a brand new game you've never heard or seen of before. But I am really excited for Halo Infinite. I've been replaying the Halo franchise this year. I've already beaten Halo Reach, Halo Combat Evolved, and then I just finished Halo 2 Anniversary last night. And I'll tell you what, it's really reignited my love of Halo. Halo used to be my favorite franchise in gaming. That changed over the years. You know, I kind of fell off with Halo a little bit with Halo 5. But replaying these Halo games, it's really just reminded me everything from the art to the soundtrack to the story. And the universe. I love Halo. So I'm super excited to see that other stuff. I'm really excited to see Fable or brand new IPs and things. But Halo Infinite, I want Halo Infinite to be awesome. All right, we're going to go for 5 more minutes, and we're going to close it up. Fishnet had dropped a super chat here. Thank you, Fishnet, Fisher's Net. Thank you so much. This is interesting. Man67, I think Microsoft would be more interested in Rocksteady because Sony has recently acquired Insomniac. That would be true if Microsoft works out a licensing deal as well for the WB purchase, right? I would say that would be very, very true if the deal was when Microsoft bought them, they acquired not permanent licenses. That's not going to happen. Anyone who buys WB games isn't going to permanently acquire Batman. They're not going to permanently acquire Harry Potter, right? It ain't going to happen. Those franchises are way too big. WB wants control of those IP, but you could see a scenario where it's a licensing deal, right? Just like EA has a licensing deal for Star Wars. They're the only one that gets to make Star Wars. I would say if you get that $4 billion, for WB to get $4 billion, which is what the upfront estimate was, it has to include some licensing agreements. It has to say whoever buys it, the next 3 years, 5 years, you get to make the only Batman games, the only Harry Potter games, things like that. So if licensing was included as well, I would say, oh yeah, someone like Microsoft acquiring Batman or something exclusively would just be absolute insanity. But if you're paying the lower amount, like the $2 billion, I don't think that has any licensing with it at all. That's probably just going to be the teams. No licensing. You get the teams, maybe whatever game they're working on right now. So like the next Batman game or the upcoming Harry Potter game, like you get to publish that. But after that, like it's done, right? You're licensing. There's no future licensing agreement. Then Rocksteady and all these companies would probably just be working on brand new IPs or some of Microsoft's established IPs. NetherRealm Killer Instinct would be sweet. But I'm guessing they would acquire Mortal Kombat too. Alex Bailey announcing Shuhei EX's name. You know what's so funny is I've talked to him for years. I mean, literally years. I've talked to him, and I still don't have any idea how to say it. I think it's funny how people call him Z Huge. I kind of do it as a joke. I know it's not the correct pronunciation, but it's fun to say Z Huge. It's just funny. Eric saying 94 people watching, but only 34 likes. Come on, people. Hey, it's not a big deal. No one should ever feel obligated to drop likes on my channel or anything. I'm just grateful 94 people are here, or were. Now we're down into the 80s, but I'm just grateful that many people show up. Acreact. Hello, Benji. Do you think we'll see a Tales of Arise or Elden Ring this month? So Tales of Arise was just delayed recently. I'm going to say no on Tales since it just got delayed. I think that they're going to wait to show that game again until they have a release date. Whenever they delayed it, they gave no new release date. They're just like, hey, this is a big project. We're not ready to show it. We're not ready to release it, anytime soon. So it's delayed. I don't think you'll see Tales of Arise until they have a release date. Elden Ring, I have talked about this on the chat before. I'm worried something went wrong with Elden Ring. So I'm going to say no as well. I don't think Elden Ring's canceled. That doesn't mean I think Elden Ring's a bad game. But Elden Ring got a teaser, a teaser with zero gameplay, zero idea of anything of how this game plays in June of last year. And then we saw nothing for over a year, literally nothing, not even new information on the game. So that's usually not a good sign. That's usually not good. So I think something in Elden Ring's development went badly. So I don't think we're going to see Elden Ring probably for a little bit either. All right. Are we going to wrap it up there? We're going to wrap it up. Wee Jumbo saying, talk about Grub Snacks. Shout out to Jeffrey Grub Snacks. I like Grub. Grub's a good guy. All right. Here we go. I think it is going to be probably the last comment I hit. Probably. Jacob Miller, do you believe with the Japan outreach Xbox is trying to make, we see a partnership with Sega/Atlas and Persona 5 coming to Xbox, maybe even Game Pass? Jacob Miller, I think there is a very realistic chance that you see Persona come to Xbox, especially now that we're seeing Persona go to PC, but by no means is it a guarantee. For example, Persona 5 did not go to PC, right? It was Persona 4. But here's the deal. I know Atlas kind of has their own feelings on things, but at the end of the day, even if they're somewhat autonomous, they're owned by Sega, and Sega is a multi-platform publisher. And I think whenever they see the sales numbers that have come in for Persona 4 Golden on PC, here's the deal. The only way I suspect you're going to see Persona remain exclusive to Sony consoles. We've seen spin-offs go to other platforms, but Persona 6, let's say Persona 6, the only way that game stays PlayStation exclusive completely in my mind, not even going to PC, is Sony's going to have to pay for it. I really think so. I don't think this is just going to be a goodwill thing because Sega, they want to make money. They want not that it would make money as an exclusive, but you can make more money if you make it on PC and PS5. So it still might remain exclusive, but if so, Sony is going to pay for it. They're going to pay money to get Persona 6 exclusive. If they don't, if there's no deal involved, I do think there is a slim chance you see Persona on Xbox. I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't say it's a lock, but it is possible. Possible, I would say. All right, we have 2 super chats. I'm going to hit these 2 super chats. Y'all are awesome getting this in right at the end. I'm going to hit these 2 super chats, and then we're going to call it a chat, everyone. Thanks for everyone that showed up. Y'all are amazing. It's so good to be back, but I got to bounce. I got to get ready for work. I got to go to work tonight, so let me hit these 2 super chats, and then we're going to get out of here. Mariana Pampa here. Thank you so much for the super chat saying, hey, Benji, July event, start or end with Halo? Ooh. Yeah, that's tough, right? That is tough. There's something about ending a show on something unknown that is hype, right? For example, you saw Sony close out the PlayStation 5 showcase with Horizon Forbidden West, which we all knew there was a Horizon sequel coming, but we didn't know it was that, right? It just showed up, and it was our first time seeing it. So there's something appealing about ending your show with something you've never seen before. But on the other hand, like you said, Halo is Halo. It's the biggest franchise Microsoft has ever had. So there's also something about closing the show with Halo, like, hey, here's a bunch of stuff you've never seen before, but here's our quote, quote, crown jewel, the franchise that brought us to where we are, Halo. If I had to make a bet, oh man, this is actually a very tough question because I could see it at either one. I'm going to bet they close with Halo. Oh, but it could open. I don't know. Oh man, I'm gonna say close with Halo, but I will not even be remotely shocked if I'm wrong on that. Not even remotely. I would put no guarantee on that, but I'm gonna just say close with Halo. And then JCat, formerly Wound Up Penguin, here with the last super chat. If Microsoft bought WB Games, would they need to shed the publishing arm and some of the smaller studios? Oh, that is a great question, JCat. So they could retain some of the talent from the publishing arm because Microsoft themselves are also a publisher, right? They have their own publishing department because they publish some third-party games. They partner with indies with publishing. So they definitely could keep some of that WB talent for their publishing arm of the company. But yeah, I definitely think you would see them, you would see layoffs on the publishing side. Yeah, it would happen. I'm sure they would try to keep some people, but there's no way they would keep everyone. And in terms of the smaller studios, I don't think they would close them. I think if Microsoft buys WB, except for maybe like a couple very, very small like support teams might get closed, but then shifted over into another developer. But I think the most of these studios would remain open because Microsoft, if they buy WB, it's going to be a play for Game Pass. It's going to be a play for getting as many games as consistently as possible, as often as possible on Game Pass to make that service worth it. So I don't think you would see much in terms of layoffs or closings at the studios themselves. All right, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for an amazing live chat. It was so good to be back. Sorry about last week that we missed a chat. It's amazing to see you all. You're all amazing. You make my day, and you make this channel awesome. So I will see you all either late this week if we have a really big announcement, something really crazy. We'll do one at the end of the week if there's something big. Otherwise, I'll see everyone next week on YouTube. We'll do another live chat, and I will see you on Twitter if you follow me there. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe. Play some games, and I will see you next time. Peace.